Welcome back, everybody. This is Zach with New Angle Sports Talk. We're going to be recapping Game 2 of the Celtics-Bucks series, Round 2, Game 2. This one was a good game. This one was a big kind of a bounce-back game for the Bucks. You know, the Celtics had a huge blowout win in Game 1. We're going to jump in and see what the Bucks did in this game and kind of talk about it a little bit. But before we get started, guys, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to help support the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And let me know what you thought about this game and how my videos are coming out right now for you guys. So as always, as well, the highlights are going to be on the screen as you can follow along as well. But before we jump into the game, just to talk about a little bit prior to the game, some things leading up to this. Baines came back. He's active tonight. Smart was still out. Marcus Smart was still out. That was kind of not a shock at all to anybody, I don't think. Kind of what we all expected from the reports that were coming out before the game. But the big question in Game 2 was, can Giannis bounce back? Can he have a rebound game and get this whole team going the direction that they need to win out this series, essentially? I felt like there was a huge story about the way that these teams played with each other, and Paul Pierce went as far as to say as Game 1, after Game 1, that the series was essentially over, which was just totally ludicrous as well. Just so you know, I bet a lot of people felt the same way, unless you're a Celtics fan, which I get it. But yeah, this series it's a 7-game series. It's going to be a good back and forth type of game, and type of series as well too. But this game, we're gonna just jump right in, guys. And honestly, the Bucks had kind of a rough start as well, just like they kind of did in Game 1 as well too. Just to start off the game, they had a really ugly turnover that led to a Tatum. So Jason Tatum intercepted the ball and then stole it for like a solo fast break and got a layup out of it. So right off the gate, the Bucks didn't look any better than they did in Game 1. And the Celtics really did a really good job as far as attacking them early, attacking them especially on defense as well too. One of the big maybe Achilles heels or weaknesses with the Bucks is Mirotic. They were kind of attacking him pretty early, and he got 2 quick fouls out of it. So he was guarding Jaylen Brown to start the game, and they were really able to kind of attack that matchup and let Jaylen Brown kind of get rolling early on in the beginning of the game. Now, even though the Celtics were kind of getting everybody involved, Kyrie Irving specifically did not have a great first quarter. He didn't have a great game, honestly, but we'll kind of get into his final numbers at the end of the video. But just to start off the first quarter, he went 0 for 6. Giannis had a rough start as well too. He went 0 for 3, but he did make 5 of 8 free throws, so he was at least remaining aggressive. I thought Kyrie was aggressive. Honestly, he just wasn't making shots. And the Bucks, they also did a really good job defensively to kind of swarm him, not just in the first quarter, but the entire game as well. They kind of they were talking a lot about in the game about how the Celtics' strategy on defense was to kind of set up a wall around Giannis to make it harder for him to come through. Now, you'll let him shoot the threes, but if he wants to come through this paint, he's got to come through this wall. I felt like the Bucks did a really good job as far as kind of setting up the same strategy with Kyrie Irving. Like you don't want Kyrie Irving shooting from threes, but you can kind of let him come through you a little bit. Like your on-ball defender, guard the 3. If he comes through with you, not the end of the world, because what happens is when he comes into the lane, the defense kind of swarms around him and kind of makes it harder for him to pass out of it or to shoot over it at that point. And they did a really good job. That was clearly their defensive game plan coming in to this game to kind of shut down or mitigate Kyrie Irving's game tonight. Middleton did actually have a really good first quarter as well too. He ended with 9 points, 5 rebounds. Middleton had a heck of a game as well too. He's kind of becoming into his own. Honestly, I want to at the end of the playoffs and stuff, and maybe even between like games in the finals or something. But I want to make some videos on YouTube to kind of talk about certain topics and stuff. So one of them would be about the biggest stars. So like anybody that's like under 25 and that kind of thing, or under 23 or under 22, yet not named Giannis because he's already kind of there. He's probably good. He might win MVP. He's right there with James Harden, but everybody minus Giannis essentially. But the big guys who are young, who have the best potential as far as becoming great players, and that could be Middleton, that could be Pascal Siakam, that could be Jason Tatum. There's just so many different players, and I want to kind of make a video of that. So just heads up, guys, on that. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe so you can get those videos when they come out. Now, before we jump into the second quarter, if you remember correctly, the Bucks did have a really big run in Game 1 in the second quarter. So this was kind of their quarter in the last game. Again, they kind of got blown out, but they had a pretty decent quarter in game 1. Can they do that again? That's kind of what we were wanting to see. That's kind of what I was focusing on as well too. To start off, they didn't do pretty bad. They didn't do bad at all. Giannis had a really big block on Tatum at one point in the second quarter, and that generated a quick, fast break for the Bucks. Now they end up missing the shot, but after they get an offensive rebound, Giannis gets the ball back and has a pretty big dunk. And that was the first time he actually made a bucket, not free throws, but just a bucket, just in general in the game. So I specifically wanted to highlight that one because that was a really big momentum-changing kind of play at that point. But overall, the first half was very, very exciting. Both teams had good defense. They had good adjustments as well too. One of the adjustments that I had noticed was that Mike Budenholzer had changed up some of his on-ball defense schemes a little bit. So he put George Hill on Kyrie to kind of keep him, again, George Hill is a physical guard, and he's not bad defensively at all, even though he's kind of losing a step with older age now. He's a vet in this league. That really worked out for them as well. Bledsoe moved to Jaylen Brown. Again, that was the Mirotić matchup that kind of got Jaylen Brown started in the very first of the game. And then they moved Mirotić over to play defense on Marcus Morris. And Marcus Morris is more of a three-point shooter, sometimes a slasher, but for the most part, he's just there to kind of play 3 and D, essentially, is his role in most game plans, I feel like. And that was a really smart move by Budenholzer because he was able to, again, kind of hide Mirotić a little bit with his defense. He's good offensively, but he's not the best defensively. He has good plays every once in a while, but it was a good way to kind of keep the Celtics from building on a game plan that they already had. Again, the adjustments is what makes teams go further in the playoffs than they probably should. Not that the Bucks shouldn't go far in the playoffs, but these are the things that kind of keep you from having. This is the type of things that keep you from, having a game 1 that you got blown out to, from being blown out a second time in game 2 on your own home court, was the adjustments. And again, Mike did a great job at that. Now, the ending numbers in the first half, was Kyrie shot 2 of 12. He had 5 points at that point. Again, he didn't start off hot. He wouldn't have a great game, honestly, like I said. But Middleton kept on building off of what he had. He was 7 of 12 at that point. He had 20 points. He shot 5 of 7 from three-point range as well, too. So he had a fantastic game as well, really came to play. And, again, he's one of those guys who are going to be might be a difficult name. He's coming into free agency next year. Might be a really key player on some really good teams in his career. Now, the start of the second half, this is kind of the quarter that the third quarter, meaning that every team has to come out strong. If you're going to make a big push, especially in the playoffs, it's got to happen in the third quarter. That's the most important quarter, in my opinion. Fourth quarter, obviously, but to get momentum back when you're down, it's got to be in the third quarter. You've got to come out really strong. And that's exactly what the Bucks did. They came out and got a 10-point lead within the first few minutes of the third quarter, so they came out really hot. Now, the Celtics did counter a little bit with their own 7-0 run, but again, coaching is all about making adjustments, especially in the playoffs, and that's what Mike did as well too. So later on in that quarter, the Bucks went on a huge run. The Celtics had only scored 2 points in over an 8-minute span. The total run for the Bucks was a 28-2 run, and again, that was game clinching at that point. Giannis had 15 points in the third quarter, so again, he was a huge part, as you'd expect in the playoffs in the fourth quarter. And if you noticed as well, too, a lot of the points weren't just coming from three-point land either. It was a lot of stuff that were in the paint as well, mid-range as well, too. I know that the mid-range is sort of dying at this point in the modern NBA, but they did a really good job as far as finding quality shots. I feel like sometimes with the Rockets, for example, they get threes and layups all day long. That's kind of how their philosophy is. But a lot of times that's not always the best shot. Sometimes getting a mid-range shot is the best shot. And to fuel this run, the Bucks did a really good job as far as finding those good shots. There's not really much to say about the Celtics, so they just didn't have a good span at that point. There's not too much to highlight on them. But kind of carrying over into the fourth quarter here and towards the end of the game, the Bucks played swarming defense all game long, especially on Kyrie again. And his final numbers did end with 4 of 18 shooting, only 9 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, 3 turnovers, and 30 minutes. Shot 1 of 5 from 3. So he really didn't have that good of a game. I get it's okay. Like it's not the end of the world. Again, we're not going to overreact like Paul Pierce did when the Bucks got blown out in the first game. But again, you don't want to see that. You want to see him come out. And the problem that I was having with Kyrie is like he doesn't show a lot of emotion. He's really even kill, and that's totally fine. But as he's sitting on the bench, like, because they essentially both teams took out their starters for the most part. I think Chris Middleton did get some extended minutes in the fourth quarter as well too, but for the most part, both by the 8-minute mark or 9-minute mark, whatever, in the fourth quarter, both teams basically had a majority of their bench players or rotational players on the court. But it just seemed like when Kyrie was on the court, or even when he was on the bench as well too, when the camera would go to him, he's not lighting up his team. He's not getting them, ready to go. They're not. There's no energy with him. It felt like maybe it was just a weird night. Maybe it's not always going to be like that. It can't be like that, honestly, to keep to upset the Bucks in the series. But it's something just to kind of keep an eye out on. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I saw that. I was like, come on, Kyrie. You got to be the leader. You got to be vocal. You got to kind of keep your teammates accountable. And we have no idea what was said in the huddles and stuff like that. So maybe he was. But from a fan's perspective, from just seeing what I saw on the TV, it just seemed like he wasn't. And that kind of was really irritating in my opinion. But honestly, guys, that was pretty much it for this game. Great defense by the Bucks. This was actually a really big game, I feel like, for Mike Budenholzer for just showing off his coaching skills, because he made adjustments and he made counters and things like that. I hope in this video I was able to show you some of those things that I had picked up and I had noticed from them. But let me know what you thought, you guys. Who do you think is taking Game 3? I'm assuming if you're Boston, you're taking the Celtics, and if you're in Milwaukee, you're taking the Bucks. But tell me who you guys have got in Game 3. The Celtics did get a win out of this by splitting the series at 1-1 in the first two games, even though they didn't have home court advantage in the series. But so that's a win in my opinion for the Celtics. That's something to keep building off of. And that was my recap video, guys. As always, like I said, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what we think as to who's taking Game 3, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.